Hi, my name is Elizabeth Kiss, and I have Chapter 14, Section 2. Now, the big thing to remember in this section is that the limit of a constant is a constant. Or, to put it in similar terms, the limit of d at x is c equals d. Alright, to start things off, we're going to need our two functions, which are f of x equals x plus 2 and g of x equals 3x plus 9. Now, before we can do anything with these functions, we're going to need their limits. And we're going to find their limits at x is 2. So we're going to do that on our calculator. Now, if you've forgotten how to type in limits on your calculator, we're going to do that together right now. We're going to go to y equals, and you're going to type in your functions. So x squared plus 2. You're going to graph it. And you can see it's a parabola. Then we're going to go to second window, and you can see that I already have my table start at 2. Then we're going to go to second graph, and you can see right here that at x is 2, our limit is 6. We're going to write that down. And then we're going to do our other function. So we're going to hit second quit, go back to y equals, clear that out, and type in our other function, which is, of course, 3x plus 9. We're going to graph it again. Then it's linear. So we're going to go back to second window. Table setup still at 2. Second graph. And as we can see here, it is 15. The first thing we're going to do with our limits is add them. Now, adding them is pretty easy. To add the limit of f of x and the limit of g of x, all you have to do is put them together, and I did that right here. So that's x squared plus 2, which is our first, which is f of x, and then plus 3x plus 9, which is g of x. And when you put those together, that's x squared plus 3x plus 11. And we're going to plug that into our calculator so we can find the limit. So you can see that I put it into the calculator, and all I did was I took it from right here. Now we're going to hit graph. There's a graph. We're going to hit second window. You can see it's still at 2. Second graph. And right there, what do you know? F of x plus f of g, f of x plus g of x equals 21. Remember our first two limits, which were, remember when we first took the limits of our two functions? They were 6 and 15. Well, 6 plus 15 equals 21. Now, remember when we first took our limits, they were 6 and 15? Well, 6 plus 15 is 21. And what did we get when we added our two limits on the calculator? 21. Next, we're going to subtract our limits. I know, so different. So, it's the same as the first time, except you're subtracting. And what you do is you put them together. So x squared plus 2 minus 3x minus 9, and that gets you to x squared minus 3x minus 7. And of course, we're going to plug it back into the calculator, which I already did. And we're going to hit graph. It might take a second. These tend to be out of the window. And then we're going to hit second window, second graph. And what do you know? The limit is negative 9. What do you get when you subtract 15 from 6? Negative 9. Would you look at that? Next, we're going to multiply. And it's almost exactly the same as adding and subtracting, except instead of doing that, you're going to multiply f of x by g of x. What you're going to do that is you're kind of going to factor it almost. So x squared times 3x is 3x cubed, and x squared times 9 is 9x squared. 2 times 3x is 6x, and 2 times 9 is 18. To put that into the Now I put that into the calculator, and we're going to hit graph. then we're going to hit second window, still at 2, second graph, and look right there. When we put in the limits, it's 90. Now, what do you think we get when we multiply 6 and 15? That's right, we get 90. Surprise, surprise. To round this out, we are going to divide. Now, this one's a little funky because you're not really going to put it in the calculator and you're not really going to divide. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, you're still going to put f of x over g of x, and g of x cannot equal 0 because you can't divide by 0. But instead of plugging in the formulas, you're going to plug in the limits. So the limit of f of x is 6 and the limit of g of x is 15. And you're going to divide both sides by a common factor, which is 3, and you're going to get 2/5. And what do you get when you divide 6 and 15? Would you look at that? 2/5. Alright, a couple more things you can do with the limits of functions is you can find the limit of a polynomial, which is f of x equals x squared plus 3x plus 6. And when you type that in the calculator and graph it, it looks a bit like that. And you hit second window, and we're going to find it at -2 instead of 2. So you're going to type in -2. Then we're going to go second graph, and at -2, it's 4. Next, we're going to find the limit of a rational. And what you do is you factor them out. So you can take out, so when you factor it, it's x plus 2 and x minus 4. And as you can see, x plus 2 is already in the bottom, so you can cross them out, and it's just x minus 4. And you go back to y equals, get all that out of there, and you type in x minus 4, and you graph it. Now it's going to be linear. And you hit window, second window, and we're going to find it at -2. And then hit second graph, it's -6. Alright, and then to finish this video out, we're going to find the limit of a difference quotient. Now this may look scary at first, but trust me, it gets easier. So the difference quotient formula, if you forgot what it was, is f times x plus h minus f of x over h. Now when you plug in this formula, we're going to do f of x equals 2x. You plug it in, and it's f times -3 plus h minus f times -3. And we're going to find it at 0. Now when you plug it in, 2 times x plus h squared minus 2x squared all over h. Then you multiply it out, so it becomes 2x squared plus 4xh plus 2h squared minus 2x squared. Now, what you can do with the 2x squareds is you can cancel them out, since one's a negative and one's a positive. Remember, that's all over h. Next, you get everything down, and it's 2h squared plus 4xh over h. The h, you can take out a 2h, and the h's cancel, and that becomes 2 times h plus 2x equal, and then you can factor that out further by making it 2 times h plus 2 minus 3 times -3, and that equals 2 times h minus 6, and you plug that into your calculator, hit graph, hit second window, and we're finding it at 0, so instead of -2, we're going to hit 0. And then you're going to hit second graph, and it's -12.
Alright, wait, Liz. How can you use this in the real world?
Cool beans, nigga!
You can
like OD